Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the 2024 Can-Am Spyder RT. Now, up until now, I had yet to ride this for any kind of distance, but the amazing people at Extreme Torque Motorsports gave me this over the weekend. Actually, it was a long weekend, and said, do what you want with it. Go ahead, make your video, do whatever you want, say whatever you want. So that's what I did, and if you're into Spyder stuff, what I'm gonna talk about in this video is something that I wasn't able to film, but I am able to show you a whole bunch of details that other people haven't shown, at least that I've seen. So what we're gonna talk about is how this thing performs and why it's good in the rain, some pros and cons to that kind of thing, and we're also gonna talk about cold weather performance and why it's pretty good in those situations as well, and we'll talk about what may not be good, but could be a good thing in that. So before we go any further, if you're interested in this kind of thing, anything with Can-Am 3 wheels, whether it's the Ryker, the Spyder, or even the upcoming Canyon, the good news is Torque Motorsports or Extreme Torque Motorsports and I have worked out an agreement where I'm gonna be driving these a whole lot. So we're gonna have a whole bunch of driving videos, a whole bunch of technical stuff, really gonna dive into the details, and if you have questions about them, I'm gonna find the answers for you. So that's what's upcoming in future videos. If that's not a reason to subscribe, I don't know what is, but let's get going with this video. So for me, the RT model has always been kind of peak Spyder or peak 3-wheel type vehicle. And really that's because once you add a third wheel, you're capable of adding some extra weight and not really losing a whole lot. And when you add weight, you can add some size. You've got tons of storage. That whole front trunk that doesn't exist on adventure bikes or touring bikes, that kind of thing, you've got it here. And then you've got all the storage out back, a lot of comfort, a lot of wind protection, and all of that kind of leads to me to compete very well with the larger Harleys, with the Honda Goldwings. Probably Honda Goldwing is more of a direct competitor because sometimes Harley guys want that Harley type feel, Harley type noise, but this thing really is peak big touring bike to me because as you get into those big touring motorcycles, you lose a lot of playfulness of a regular motorcycle and you gain a lot of downfalls over a regular motorcycle, whereas this one still has a lot of playfulness, but it also kind of eliminates the biggest things, that feeling of having a big bike, whether you're slow speed in town, whether you're, anywhere you want to be, this thing just has advantages over a touring motorcycle, unless you want to stay on 2 wheels, and if that's you, not a problem, but for me, this is the peak. Now, in that peak comes a couple of inherent advantages. First of all, we know that all of the braking power on a smaller vehicle or any vehicle really comes down to the front wheels. So having this Spyder in this sort of Y-type shape with the power wheel in the back and the steering wheels in the front and separated, what that does is when you jam on the brakes, unlike a traditional trike like from other manufacturers where you have your braking contact patches in the rear and just a very, very small tire in the front, you've got good braking power in the front. And that makes a huge difference when it comes to wet traction and cold weather traction. So if you think about cold weather on a motorcycle tires, they don't really last that long. They have to be a softer compound for the handling and everything else. And you have such a narrow contact patch. First of all, the tire is round like this, so you have that much of a contact patch, so that's typical, but then it's rounded on the side as well. And that rounding on the side gives you a very, very tiny contact patch. In the wet weather, that is not a lot of power to stop, and it's certainly different driving a motorcycle in the wet weather. Whereas this, you have 2 traction points on the front where all of your braking is done and all of your steering is done, and they are wide. There's much more traction on the ground. So whether it's dry or rainy, you have that advantage. Now, the other thing is, like I said, in cold weather, motorcycle tires perform best in a little bit warmer weather. This thing, because you have all the wind protection, like a big touring bike, you're gonna take it in cooler weather. When you take it in cooler weather, motorcycle tires tend to have a lot less traction. These ones, although all rubber will get less traction at certain temperatures, these ones still give you plenty of traction. So whether it's wet or whether it's cold, you have a lot of steering power and a lot of braking power, and it's far more confidence inspiring in those conditions. Now, of course, you also have weather protection. Let me show you a few details on this that actually give you that weather protection. And I've left this thing dirty. Torque Motorsports wants these things clean for my videos. I went out and immediately got it dirty, and I left it dirty to show you some of the design engineering in this that works in wet weather. So what you're looking at right now is the left side wheel tire, and it is the inside here. So I've spun the wheel outside from the unit here, or from the vehicle, just to see some of this. Now on the outside of here, you have maybe half an inch or so of coverage here from the fender, but on the inside, it goes right down and it actually curls inside. So anywhere that water would want to spray out towards you, it doesn't. And you also have little aerodynamic dips here. And if you look at the dirt on here, you can see there's some, the tire spins and there's some splash along the front. There's some sort of edge along here, and then it's kind of cleaner back here. So it's cleaner in the backside of the fender, and that allows you to have a very covered, clean ride, even though the wheels are outside of you. As we move our way back on the vehicle, you're going to see that some of this overall fender protection really does make a difference on where your feet sit, which isn't the same case on most motorcycles. So taking a look at the opposite side, the right side of the vehicle now, it's really the same left and right. The only difference is this side has the brake lever, and the reason I'm showing you this one is because, or the brake pedal I should say, is because this actually has an opening here where the other foot board is completely covered. So if you're gonna get wet, it's gonna be through those openings, right? Well, that's not the case. You can see that, again, I left the bike dirty. There's no real dirt on this section at all. There's a little tiny bit of splash marks on the back here, which might just be rain that had, smeared off as it sat at a stoplight or something like that. But the foot boards here are very clean, very protected, and the curvature out of here with the little flaps on the front, all of that's keeping you clean. So what that does is means that even again, as the wheels are outside, all of you stay clean. Now, we'll talk about an advantage and disadvantage of this bike as we talk about heated seat and heated grips. I rode this even in 6-degree weather and 8-degree weather. That's Celsius, so, call it 40-ish degrees Fahrenheit. I rode this bike maybe just a hair in the early 40s, whatever it is. But I rode this bike in cold, cold weather in vented shoes, my vented motorcycle shoes, not my normal winter shoes. And I wore my jacket, and I actually ended up having it vented when it was like 12, 13 degrees, where normally I would have all vents done up. The one area that this does not keep me warm with my vented shoes was down here. There's essentially no engine heat coming off of this, and my feet and toes got just a little cool, not from the rush of air, just from the ambient air. So one thing to remember is, although all of that wind protection up top may keep you warm and even warmer than you're used to in the summer, down low, you do have a little bit of, although we have good protection, you don't have that warmth of the engine that you would normally have on a lot of bikes with hot engines. And I think that's a good thing for the summer, but it's something to keep in mind for the winter. You may want to put on a little bit warmer socks than you would, because although you're fully wind protected, it's not fully summer vented shoe weather at 6 degrees Celsius. Moving back just a hair, I just want to show you, again, we left the dirt on this thing to show you there is a little bit of dirt on the side and on the front of this bag here. And what that means is my passenger may possibly experience a little bit of rain compared to the driver, but really it's going to be fairly dry there for whoever's there because of all the protection. Certainly for the driver, they're good. The passenger may want to have rainproof pants if it really pours rain, but then again, so would the driver. So all very good protection there. You can see there's a little bit of, let's just zoom right in here all the way down. You can see a little bit of dirt there on the exhaust there and coming up there. So again, very good protection here with just a little bit more up in that section there of rain finally coming through on that area that sticks out further than anything else. So wrapping up with rain protection, there's one last piece I want to show you, and that's this windshield here. So as I turn the bike on, sometimes the windshield rises up, and there it goes. It's rising up and rising up. I want to point out this is a standard windshield, and once I'm riding this bike, the windshield, when it's up high, I found I could stand up and up and up until it finally started to hit the tip of my helmet. Now, I am looking through the top of the windshield. As I put the windshield fully down, I can see over the windshield, but interestingly, I'm basically still in that pocket. Now, at about 6 feet tall, I have vents on the top of my helmet, and those vents were allowing me, I'm just gonna turn it off, those vents were allowing me to get a little bit of wind in the top of my helmet, but there was no real wind noise, and I was still very much in the pocket. I still had to come up a little bit in order to sort of start to hear a lot of wind noise, a lot of area. So you're in a pocket behind this windshield. If you're 6 feet tall or shorter, you're in that pocket whether the windshield is up or down. The one difference I found is driving through the splash, in other words, the road splash from other vehicles. And I say splash, what I mean is the mist that comes up from other tires just driving on the road. You're kind of in that first 3-4 feet of just kind of mist coming up from the tires. When it was a lot and when it was heavy, I put the windshield fully up, and that would put some rain on the windshield. It would slightly distort my view versus having it down. So what I would recommend is keep that windshield with a nice coat of quick wax, just something like cheap and easy to find, because that will allow it to bead up and allow you to keep that windshield higher when you have that mist. Once the rain starts getting harder, it kind of beads on its own anyways, and you can see right through it. But one little tip there, keep this a little bit waxed up and you're good in the rain. A couple quick things that I want to point out here. Compared to the F3, you have massive footboards here. I absolutely love that. This one has the accessory backrest for the driver. If it were me at 6 feet tall, I would get the extended reach handlebars to put me back an inch, and I could kind of make a little bit more use of that backrest. But you know, the way it is, you still have it fine, but your arms are kind of spread out, whereas I'd like to be a little bit more bent arm. So again, moving that handlebar back a little bit puts you on that backrest, keeps you comfortable. So that's little things to notice. But again, sitting at the full back position with the backrest, still easily in the pocket of wind. Footboards here, I love that you can move your feet around. What I found is out front, you faced a little bit more wind, tucking in sort of that adventure bike position. You're away from your brake pedal, but that was the cleanest as far as no wind on my legs. Again, no heat from that engine to speak of, so my vented shoes were allowing me to get just a hair cool. I would wear normal non-vented shoes. So when I say you have to wear socks, it's probably not that I had to wear thicker socks. I probably should have just worn non-vented shoes that I wear when it's 30 degrees Celsius and more in the summer. I just happened to be wearing those when I was riding this. Now let's talk about cold weather protection and a couple of the features here. I want to show you one thing in the dash. So before we show you the dash, I want to show you the difference in two of these switches here. This is your heated grips and this is your heated seat. Now you have the same buttons essentially on the rear seat. So where the rear passenger puts their hands, they have heated grips, and where they sit down, they have a heated seat as well. Now the heated seat button is identical on both. You have a low setting and you have a high setting, and in the center you're off. The heated grip section is different out front. The heated grips out back are exactly like this. You set them low, you set them high, that's what you've got. But in the driver's position, you can see when I press it down, it doesn't stay. When I press it up, it doesn't stay. There are multiple settings of heated grips in here, and it makes a difference. I have heated grips on my motorcycle. These ones are better for sure. So let me just show you what you see in the dash as you cycle through your heated grips. All right, so here's the dash. I haven't got the vehicle running, but it'll show you everything you need. You can customize this dash in a bunch of different ways, including having Apple CarPlay, but that's not what we're showing today. So I'm gonna touch that heated grip button. And you can see as I press it down, there's one orange button there. It's because it was on level 2. Now it's on level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. You have that 5 levels of heated grip in here, so you can cycle through that, and they seem to stay on where you left them when you turned it off last. So if you stop in the cool, you can get that again. I really, really like this feature. I really like that you can set them warmer, because the 5th setting is quite warm, as well as the heated seat setting. The top setting is quite warm, and because you're in that pocket of air, it really does keep you warm. I have a naked bike with no hand protection, and I found I was wearing my summer gloves with the heated grips, and it was totally fine. I didn't have to wear the winter gloves with the heated grips, and I have winter gloves that are soft on my hand, or thin on my hand, my palm of my hand, and thicker on the far side, so you can feel the heated grips. But I didn't need those winter gloves, even at 6-8 degrees, because you have enough wind protection. And oops, hitting the wrong button there. And then you have, again, the heated grips there. So very cool to realize that this is not just a couple settings, it's 5 different settings. So let's quickly recap about what I discovered this weekend and what we're gonna still cover. First of all, I still love the RT. I think it is kind of the perfect 3-wheel. It does lose some sport over the F3, just basically from seating position, you know, but to me, it just kind of makes sense for what it is. And when I say it loses some sport, the F3 is pretty sporty. This one is still a sporty machine. I still view it as a sporty machine. So it doesn't feel like a slow, boring cruiser. And again, the performance of the brakes especially really gives you advantage. So recapping, because you have wheels that are on the outside, you have to manage the splash. The RT does it better than anyone, better than any other Spyder in my opinion, because of the larger footboards. That also gives you more comfort on a longer trip, and to me that squared seating position is also good. Now that tall seating position is protected by a larger windshield. The F3 that I drove had a very small windshield, you know, just a couple inches above the dash here, and of course that would allow more air or more rain to come through you and more splash to come through you. So if you really want weather protection, and to me in a touring rig, you have to want weather protection, because that's the kind of thing that happens on tours. You have your vacation booked and hey, sometimes it rains. So if you really want the most weather protection, I think the RT is the way to go. I do also really appreciate the confidence this gives you in wet roads and cold roads. I can tell you from riding my own motorcycle, if it's a little bit wet, I'm so much more cautious, and it takes kind of the fun out of this, where this one, you can still explore, you can look around, you can see things, you can, you know, do the touring you want to do regardless of the weather. Even if it got a little bit frosty on the roads, it wouldn't be something that scares me or something like that. Obviously, you have to drive responsibly, but on a motorcycle with such a small traction piece, you haven't got that margin for error that you absolutely have with this. And of course, ABS, stability control, the traction control, all of that stuff works really, really, really well. So you've got everything you need. The one advantage I find with these larger Spyders is they really extend the riding season. This past weekend, it was cool. It looks beautiful now, and it actually is beautiful right now. It's still a little cool, but it's, you know, it's pretty nice. But this past weekend, I would not have been riding my own naked motorcycle in this weather, not because I'm a total wimp, but just because I ride my motorcycle for fun and to explore. And if it's a little bit less fun to explore, you know, you're just bulked up in bigger clothing, it just takes some of the fun away. Whereas this thing, you can be comfortable in normal clothing. I still could have strapped on extra warm clothing and gone longer and longer. So in my opinion, you could ride this down below 0 degrees. The only thing is that surprised me is the engine does not keep you warm down there. So again, vented shoes are out when it's really, really cold, which makes total sense. And that's actually a really good thing. So which Spyder is the best for all weather conditions? The RT for sure. Now again, coming up, what are we gonna do? We're gonna talk about luggage space. We're gonna talk about the new Canyon. I'm gonna be able to ride that as well. We're gonna talk about the Spyder F3 and its various configurations. We're gonna talk about the Ryker as well and its various configurations. There are changes for 2025 that I'll talk about in detail as we start cycling through those. So if you made it this far in the video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next one.